egotistical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL network.
Yes, so welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network here for our Monday Night Roundtable covering Season 48, Episode 5, the Amy Schumer and Steve Lacy episode of Saturday Night Live. My name is John from the Saturday Night Network. So happy to be with you on this Monday night and our amazing panel and everybody in the chat to break down the sketches that we really want to talk about from this week of SNL. And we're going to talk about everything. Talk about what's coming up next week as well. So pretty much a jam-packed roundtable is coming up. And, Amy Schumer hosting for the third time. I figured it'd be best to bring in a panel of 3 seasoned veterans here at the Saturday Night Network. So people have been with us since the beginning pretty much. So let me first introduce one of our greatest super fans. It is Andrew Haynes. Haynes, how are you?
I'm excellent. I'm so excited to talk about this episode. We just had a great Halloween week last week. That's why I have this mustache. I was Edgar Allan Poe, and so that was part of the sacrifice for the costume. Although
you haven't always had a mustache.
I've always been a beard guy. The beard is starting to come back in now, and it needs to quickly because I realize I look a lot fatter with the mustache. So bringing the beard back to cover this thing down here.
Rebecca, Haynes has always had a mustache.
Right?
I was
going to say, I was like, nothing looks different. I'm like racking my brain. I was like, you look exactly the same.
Are you guys trolling me right now? I guess. It's because it's starting to come back in. It's starting.
Like the sketch artist at the end of the Juror sketch. Like if somebody asked me to draw you, I would draw you with a mustache. I don't know if anyone.
Wow. Okay. You know what? Maybe I'm a mustache guy.
Maybe you are. Maybe you should keep it. But obviously joining us tonight as well, it is Rebecca North. Rebecca, so excited to have you back on the show. Rebecca, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been West Coast podcaster for a while now. I'm back on East Coast, so this feels good. I'm like all energized now. I was finally able to eat dinner before the show, so this is exciting, and I can't wait to talk about Amy Schumer specifically.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that too. So coming to you live from New York, we got Rebecca back on the East Coast. Very fun, and she'll be part of our coverage all season long as well. And then very pumped to have this guy on the podcast, and he knows everything there is to know about sketch comedy. It is the great Dave Buckman. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing great. Sketchfest is in the past, and our reopening is in the past, and I'm excited to finally focus on what I need to be focusing on, and that's a weekly episode of Saturday Night Live.
Well, that's fantastic. So always great to have you on the show, Dave. Excited to dive into everything in just a moment. And we will start our discussion tonight by talking about Amy Schumer, who, like I said, was hosting for the third time. So here's what I remember about Amy Schumer from, obviously people know Amy Schumer from outside of SNL, but just in particular when it came to Saturday Night Live. I remember when she hosted for the first time all the way back in season 41, so going back 7 years ago. People could not be more excited. At least that was, the perspective I had, where, she's coming in this big, I would say she was a star at that point. I think she was just in Trainwreck with Bill Hader, and it was really good. And going back and rewatching that episode this past week, there was a lot of great stuff there. I felt like she was really, really strong. Then they bring her back for the Mother's Day show 2 seasons later, season 43. And I think she had a pretty good episode, but somewhere between season 43 and season 48, I felt like, at least in the SNL community, there was a little bit of a drop off in the appreciation of Amy Schumer. And, we spent the last weeks trying to figure out why. And I think it has to do maybe with her brand of comedy, not always clicking with all the right people. But I personally think on Saturday Night Live, she's a fantastic host and somebody who definitely deserved to come back for a third time. So, Haynes, when you saw Amy Schumer gets popped up on screen coming into this episode, what were your thoughts?
I was thrilled. As I've said before, and I'll say again, I love stand-ups as hosts. Obviously, they're going to crush the monologue. And then, even if they may not be amazing actors always, usually, they obviously understand timing, and I mean, they read cards as well as anyone. I've never had a problem with a stand-up being a host. So I was thrilled to hear that she was going to host. I have always liked Amy Schumer a lot. I loved Inside Amy, back in the day, which apparently it's back now, which is going to be awesome. I haven't seen it yet, but I used to love it. And I never got the hate for Amy. When she first kind of exploded onto the scene in a larger way, back before she hosted SNL the first time, I used to hear people saying that they didn't think she was that funny. And I admit, maybe this is reductive, but sometimes I would just kind of disregard that as like misogyny, since there's sometimes seems to be a thing where some guys just don't want to admit that women are funny sometimes. So I used to treat it that way. Recently, I'm like still hearing hate for Amy Schumer, and I don't get it. I think she's hilarious. I love her brand of comedy. Everybody's got their own brand. Hers is very bold and sexual, and it's all very fun to me. And so I was thrilled.
Yeah, I think you know what you're getting with Amy. So, like, when you get lines like this in the episode.
When can I get raw dog from behind, please?
God forgive my pain.
Oh, sorry. That's that rolled into another sound clip, but we'll cut that out later. But for me, you know what you're getting. You're gonna get a very sexual episode from Amy Schumer. So if you're not like up for that brand of humor, it's not always your thing. But Rebecca, I know you are a big fan of Amy Schumer.
Yeah.
How did you feel about her being booked for the show?
I mean, I couldn't be happier. I've been a huge Amy Schumer fan from the start. Like, I've kind of always seen myself in her, like a Long Island girl, like just seeing like a lot of her jokes that are more niche, I relate to. So she has always been my brand of comedy. And I do agree, Haynes. I would say from the start, I would have just disregarded any hate for her as like, oh, it's misogyny. Like, if you look at 75% of female stand-ups and people are like, they're annoying, and a lot of it could be tied back to some misogyny. I think as the world got more politically charged, so did Amy Schumer, which only made her more polarizing as any outspoken person with like specific political beliefs. So I think that a lot of the time, I mean, even from her first appearance to her second appearance, the world was a different time. And I think that was a lot of the negative feedback from just her in general in the past few years, which I don't agree with. But at the same time, like I could see that if someone was super politically charged in a way that I didn't believe, I wouldn't like them either. So I get that. But I think Amy Schumer on the show is like, if you had me, and I'm definitely biased, but like gun to head favorite monologue ever, it would be her like original monologue on SNL. Like, I could recite the whole thing. Love it. And she's a natural. I mean, a lot of like people that have acted, they could read the cards. It looks like it, but every sketch that like Amy's in, it seems like it's written for her, even if they're just written as their own. So she kind of takes it and makes it her own, which tends to be more sexual or a lot more blunt to the jokes, but she's good about like taking this, making it her own, making it seem like it was written for her and not like someone else could stand in and do the same exact thing as her. So I like that. And especially I was excited to see this season with all 4 of the new cast members being stand-ups, seeing how that would kind of play in with Amy also being mainly stand-up first. So I don't know. I was super, super excited to see her.
That's an interesting point, that we have a lot of stand-ups in the cast now, and how does that play when stand-ups get booked for the show? Is there interaction? And I don't know that we saw that in particular this week, but it's an interesting thought experiment as stand-ups will continue to get booked throughout the season. So Dave, let me head over to you. What were your initial thoughts when Amy Schumer was booked for the 3rd time? Let me just make sure I got you, Dave.
Yeah, there we are. We are definitely an Amy Schumer household in our house. We like all the body Jewish comedians. We like our Sarah Silvermans. We like our Nikki Glazers. So Amy Schumer, we were watching Life and Beth. We're all in on Amy Schumer for sure. So I was very excited. I love Inside Amy Schumer. I don't have Paramount, so I don't know when I'm going to get around to seeing this new season. So I'm yeah, of course she deserves a 3rd hosting gig. I mean, she is one of the best sketch comedian writers and showrunners, certainly in the last decade. So it's a natural fit. And I've loved her previous too. So I was all in. I was very excited to see Amy Schumer host.
Yeah, I was very excited as well. I do think that the writing may have been a touch worse this time compared to the previous 2 times that we saw, and we'll get into the sketches, but that was sort of my overall impression as we were walking away from the episode on Saturday. But before we get to the sketches, I do want to point something out, which is, if you're not on social media and you're just listening to the podcast, you may not have been aware of this week, but there was like sort of a little bit of a hubbub on Thursday or Friday, where every single Thursday we get these promos where we have the host and the musical guest and a cast member say like, hi, I'm Amy Schumer and I'm hosting Saturday Night Live this week with musical guest Steve Lacy. And then there's like one joke. And we didn't get that. Actually, earlier in the week, we got a great pre-produced promo that was like a fun little 1-minute sketch where you had Michael Longfellow coming in as Amy's baby, and that was really cute. But then everyone was wondering, okay, like no promo Thursday, no promo Friday, no promo Saturday, and it was kind of odd. And I think the question became, at least from what I saw in our community, was like, okay, well, is everything okay with Amy? Did Steve Lacy drop out? Like, what's the deal with that? And it turns out that we did find out after the episode that on Thursday, Amy's son Gene was rushed to the hospital with RSV, which is like a breathing situation that was happening where, unfortunately, he had to be admitted to the hospital that day. And SNL, from my understanding, let Amy take the day off and go spend the time with her son. And she was talking. You could see, if you go back to the Goodnights, you could see how emotional that Amy was when she's talking about her family at the time. And I just want to point out, like, I think we take for granted sometimes, especially like us who are covering the show every single week, just like how difficult it is to take a week off your life to do everything with SNL. It is like 24/7 craziness to be able to produce the show the way it's produced. And for someone, who has a family, who's as busy as they are, we often wonder, like, why isn't, so-and-so hosting the show? Well, it's not the easiest thing to do to host Saturday Night Live. And now you put on top of this family situation, which was obviously extremely stressful, and we feel for her and hope that her son is okay, which I believe that she said that he's doing better now. So I just wanted to point that out, because it's not that we can't evaluate the comedy, objectively without having to think of the situation. But I do think we have to keep in mind that, it's not always as straightforward as simply jumping in and diving into a comedy show. Sometimes real life things like get in the way too. So very like impressed with what Amy and the show was able to produce, given that she pretty much missed an entire day of rehearsals and promos and all that stuff. And happy that her family and her son in particular is doing well. All right, let's get into the cold open from this week. And interesting cold open this week, which I felt was sort of not so season 48 vibes. It gave me like a little bit of season 47, season 46 vibes, something we would talk about the last couple of seasons, where we had JAJ come out as President Joe Biden, the first time we've seen him play the president since April. I'm pretty sure, or at least the beginning of May. It's been a while since the end of last season. So we've gone 5 episodes, and now we're finally seeing JJ play the current president. And then he brings out some bold ideas for the Democratic Party as we head towards the midterms, because all the Republicans, they have all of these, really interesting and different candidates. But the Democrats, they're all boring. So he decides to bring out Marianne Williamson, Guy Fieri, Tekashi 6ix9ine, Stormy Daniels, Azealia Banks, and then Keenan playing Tracy Morgan. And it's pretty much a row of impressions that goes in and out for about 5 minutes. Haynes, how did you feel about what we saw from Biden's bold ideas this week as our cold open?
It was okay. I mean, James Dawson Johnston still does a pretty good Biden. James, if you're listening, no offense, I still like Dana Carvey's a little bit more, but everybody's got to do their own thing. I still think it's pretty good. No, listen, the sketch was fine. It did have more season 47 vibes. It didn't blow me away in any way, but it wasn't particularly slow. We got to the characters pretty quickly. Not all of these folks are people that we're hearing about all the time, but, who else do? I mean, I guess, Democrats had a lot of characters, a few years ago. Not so much right now. I guess, I mean, you could go into the pop culture ether and pull, anyone who's a big, exciting, character right now and toss them in there. And they could have done that. They could have done more of that. I don't know if like pulling in a Guy Fieri is that crazy. But listen, it wasn't horrible. It was fine. And there's a couple decent jokes. Not all of them got laughs. No one laughed. The audience didn't laugh at all when Joe Biden said, Stormy Daniels, talented actress. And I was like, come on, guys. Like, we've heard sarcasm before, right? Like, I thought that was funny. The best joke might have been Keenan as Tracy Morgan, when they said, what do we want? And he said, I just kind of want some sugar-free White Castle. And I was like, that's it. That is a pretty good Tracy Morgan style line. That's a Tracy Morgan style line that I got a good kick out of. So to me, it was fine. It was kind of C material, but there's worse ways to start a show.
Yeah, Dave, I think I'm conflicted, and maybe you need to help me with this because I need to sort of talk this through. Which
What's
is
the
that
problem, John?
okay? Well, it pops up with the presidential seal, and we get a message from the president of the United States, and part of me
Sure.
gets chills because it's SNL and the president's about to come on and say something funny,
Yes.
right? But I don't know that I trust SNL when that seal pops up anymore to do something that's really going to hit. So I have this just like pure like anxiety now when I see it's just a message from the president, at least at first.
Well, look, I mean, is this Biden a Will Ferrell, George W. Bush? No, it's not. Is it a Phil Hartman Clinton? No, it's not. You know, or even a Daryl Hammond Clinton? It's not. But I like it. It's funny, but it's silly. I like it that it's silly, but it's not satirical. There's no overall take on the character. Like I couldn't tell you what the recurring character is for Biden. You know, it's if you think of characters in sketch as like the rule of the Smurfs or the rule of the Seven Dwarfs, everybody has like, you know, this is the dumb president, the smart president, the charming president. We don't know what this Biden is, what this adjective of this Biden is. Is it senile? Not really. I mean, Biden's not senile. We know he's not senile. He stutters. You know, that's and people like to pick up on that and make fun of that as if that makes him dumb or out of touch. But there's no there. It's a nothing burger when they make fun of him for that because it's not really there. You know what I mean? Bush was a little dim. Clinton was way too charming off the scales. So, you know, it's a good enough impression for now until the writers or somebody in that writers room has some sort of satirical take on the presidency, on this presidency, at least the way Adam McKay had on George W. Bush or Jim Downey had on Clinton for that matter.
Yeah, well, I feel like the only take that I've seen, and this is nothing to do with James Austin Johnson, who I do think does a great impression, but it's sort of the only take that I've seen that I felt has worked so far with his Biden has been probably when Sudeikis was on the show and they did like the old Biden versus the new Biden and the differences and how he is. And I think they're trying, like, here, I'll give you this line from this cold open.
Do yourself a favor, Google young Joe Biden and start a bubble bath.
Big penis there.
Damn it, that keeps coming up. So,
but you're right.
It keeps coming up. So, but
Sudeikis' Biden had a take. For sure.
Yes,
had a hard take.
Yeah. Okay. But what I will say is that I do feel like they're trying to recapture this whole like, okay, he's not the way he used to be type of thing, and that's the take that they're going with it. And I don't know if there's a lot there, but. Sorry, that was just really funny. But but I will say, to go to your opinion, Rebecca, on this cold open, I'll maintain what I've said about Biden, which I said last season, is that if you don't have a strong take on Joe Biden and his personality and what they're going to do with JJ, then take him out of the White House. Put him into other situations and let the situation be the take, where like a la Phil Hartman at McDonald's type of thing, you know, as Clinton. There's things that they could do where they could put him somewhere else, and I think that would probably play better. But Rebecca, what did you think of this cold open?
I didn't even see this. Like when I was watching it, I mean, I saw in the comments here, it was like, well, good, it was short. And I do agree. I thought this was a weak cold open. I was pleasantly surprised by the rest of the season so far. And this kind of brought us back to 47, where it was like, you guys are really just stretching and reaching for something here. But I didn't see this as much of a political like sketch as I did like the type of sketches where they try to just showcase impressions. Like, oh, we're recasting Jurassic Park. Everyone come do your impression. That's kind of what it felt like, but they didn't even go that far. Like, I mean, I kind of zoned out. And the second I heard Molly's Guy Fieri, I was like, they killed that because spot on. I mean, it made me turn my head and I was like, whoa, okay, that's just Molly. So, I mean, I watched SNL Sunday, so I didn't actually watch it live. I got a glimpse, like, I saw just a screenshot of, like, Ego playing Azealia Banks, who I'm sure, like, a lot of people don't even know who that is, and you still don't after the sketch. So, like, it wasn't even beneficial. I mean, I've said this before about this season and even last, but more this season with a lot of the takes, they're trying to appeal to the younger Gen Z and they're trying to make things more relevant. So they got me by showing me Ego as Azealia Banks, and then they had Marcelo as Tekashi 6ix9ine, and they didn't go anywhere. So they were just randomly taking a Gen Z reference that people would know, kind of getting people in to watch. And then no one knows, like, if you don't know who they are going to this, you weren't learning anything. And I kind of felt this was pointless. Like, yeah, some of the impressions were spot on. Like Marcelo did a good job, but there was no content. It was more just like, come up here, read the line. I don't know.
Can I just push back for a second? Do you really believe that they chose those specific impressions because they wanted to appeal to Gen Z?
Yes.
Okay, because I just find that weird. Because if that's the case, then why like put Stormy Daniels and like Guy Fieri and like I just feel like if all the impressions were like, because there was a whole thing right this summer about like the Democrats trying to get like TikTokers and that's how they were going like TikTokers to support them and that's how they're going to win the midterms is because they're going to have all the TikTokers supporting the Democrats. So if like that was the take, which I think they did something like that in season 47, I would have understood that a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even James said in the comment, and he beat me to it. Yeah, Gen Z loves Guy Fieri, and I think
okay, I didn't know that.
I think it's just very like, I mean, he's like such a memeable person. So I think Molly had a good impression, just threw them in. Like, I don't know. This did feel like a really reach trying to show like people. I mean, I was like, okay, I need to see what Azealia Banks is going to do, and Azealia Banks in real life is such a character, and I'm surprised that wasn't more in the Twitter sketch later on, and. I don't know. This felt like a kind of pathetic attempt to like get people in for no reason, like Tekashi 6ix9ine. Like, yeah, Marcelo did a good job, but like, why was that relevant here when they could have just saved it for like to throw it in? That's what it felt like, and that was a cold open, not just like a filler sketch, which was why I was so taken. Like, I love seeing people's impressions. Like, that's always fun to me because people come into the show with already set like randoms that like they just want to showcase. And I think that this sketch kind of felt like that. And it was the cold open though.
So I'll say this is kind of what threw me off, you know, as I'm trying to analyze the sketch is, you know, like you said, it's the type of sketch where you would use this vehicle to bring in like a bunch of great impressions. Like if everybody's sitting on these impressions, but we don't know how to use them in a sketch, we don't want to do a sketch that's completely centric around like one character, you know, we can kind of churn them in, churn them out, see these great impressions. But I didn't think any of the impressions were that great. Like these weren't like the best impressions that these folks do. And also they don't seem that relevant. So I'm like, what is pulling, how did we get to this point? I don't know. So that was one of the things that just didn't quite work all the way for me.
I think that the common denominator when they're trying to write this sketch is, you know, you got Dr. Oz, you got Herschel Walker, you got Carrie Lake, all these lunatics running on the Republican side. And, you know, how are we going to compete with that? Democrats have to compete with that and say, hey, America, we also have lunatics on our side. We also have famous people that you know that are trash people that we can also put up for office. And so trying to find those people, those celebrities, trash celebrities that look like people in this cast that could possibly lean Democrat and scare everybody in middle America to be elected to office if they were elected to Congress. How do you find those 5 celebrities with this cast?
I guess that's the challenge.
Yeah, but also no, but Azealia Banks is outspoken about her love for Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, like okay, so I just looked this up to double check to fact check myself. But in 2021, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump were on her list of people that she loves, and she's like spoken out about other celebrities like who like shit on Donald Trump, and she's spoken up and telling them like to stop it. Oh, sorry.
Now we're like super cool with that word.
I was literally triggered because I was just like, don't say it, don't curse now. As a reminder.
It's okay.
Yeah,
it's
that's
fine.
What's confusing. It's just confusing that Azealia Banks, like it didn't seem like research was done enough because like that's not who I would have chosen. And she's had a lot of controversial takes from both sides, like in the past, but like to someone that is outspokenly Democrat to prove the point of like, I don't know.
Fair.
Yeah,
so,
I think I agree. I think to Dave's point, I think I get what they were going for. I don't know that they fully executed on it. So let's dive into the sketches from the episode that we really want to talk about. And Haynes, I'm going to start with you. Which sketch do you want to talk about?
Well, I would like to talk about The Looker, which was a pretty great pre-tape. I enjoyed it. So this was basically a parody of The Watcher, which is a new show on Netflix. I have seen The Watcher. I won't offer my comments on the season 1 finale in case other people want to watch it. But this really worked for me because we all do weird stuff when no one's around. Like, we all have embarrassing, awkward. I know I did. That's an obvious follow-up question that I will not answer. But obviously, like, we all have, like, embarrassing moments in privacy, and so we can all relate to that. And then, on top of that, there's the other thing that we can all relate to as we move forward. And people, so they're getting the letter. It's threatening that this person's been observing them. He's seeing all the weird stuff they do. And Amy's immediately denying everything. Like, what? So weird. That's not me. Like, why is he making up all this stuff about me? We all have been around a friend who will not admit to something, even though everyone knows they're lying. Like, in a group setting or something. And it's just like, come on, like, we all know you're lying here. So we've all dealt with this type of person, I think. And so, you could relate to it in multiple ways. And it was just really funny. She's basically, as soon as she gets by herself, she's eating and masturbating, and and she's doing so to the Property Brothers. I guess it's a pretty funny joke about whether she's more attracted to the Property Brothers or the property. And
well, she does reveal the answer, by the way.
She does reveal the
property I'm into, not the brothers.
Sorry.
She does. Yeah, no, that's perfect. She does. Yep. So she reveals that at the end. Very relatable. We all love a good property. But it's full of funny little jokes like, oh my God, someone downloaded every episode of Property Brothers and only watched the first 5 minutes. And so then we get this little joke about how quick it takes for her to get off and stuff. And so, for me, it just worked on so many levels. I just thought it was really well done.
Yeah. Let me just say, I think this was my favorite sketch of the season so far. Just in terms of, like Haynes said, he described it as relatable. Well, yeah, for sure. Definitely that checks off that box. So you think about that and then you start to think, well, okay, it's relatable, but does it have escalation? It does. It really escalates in a way that, it's maybe not linear, but it just, how can they, get even like more cringy? They find a way to do that. It's also extremely well cast, in my opinion, where you have like the perfect host to be able to do this. JJ, who's not only playing the father in the sketch, but is also doing the voiceover of the looker, from my understanding. So he's like the haunting voice was really perfect. Just listen to the line. I mean, just the way, like, the lines are funny, but the way that the lines are said are even funnier.
After everyone's asleep, she goes to the kitchen and eats an entire second dinner.
Like, that's just so benign, but then it gets crazier and crazier as they go. Maybe not so crazy, but just escalates. And so for me, it checks off a lot of boxes. Dave, how did it play for you?
I'm going to agree that the 5 minutes of each episode was a great joke, and that's where my love for the sketch ends.
Really? Okay.
I think
Why?
For me, the COVID pre-tape was the best sketch of the year for me so far. This was not so great for me. I don't know The Watcher. I didn't know The Watcher. So coming at this from somebody who'd never heard of The Watcher, I didn't like it for 3 very specific reasons. One is, I think James Austin Johnson has this thing where he's got this Daryl Hammondness, where I rarely believe him if it's not an impression. If it's just him acting in a sketch, there's kind of a woodness about him that Daryl Hammond also had when he was in a sketch. That it's like, I'm having a hard time believing you as an actor in this role, because there's just too much of you in this role. So that's one thing. And I love him. I love his impressions. But that's not yet in a sketch, in an actual sketch where he plays somebody else. The concept of the sketch, did she write the letter to get some alone time, or is she just taking advantage of the letter to get off on now being watched?
You have to watch the
I don't want to watch it. I shouldn't have to watch it. I shouldn't have to watch it for that to make sense to me. So that's, and then the third thing is something that, speaking to your thing, John, about this was not my favorite Amy episode, was there was a lot of moments in this episode, and where Amy kind of sold out the sketch at the very end. There's 3 times when she did that, and it really bothered me. As somebody who's as good a sketch as she is, when she holds up the matzo ball in the Manny's Diner sketch, when she crosses her eyes in this sketch at the end of the sketch, it feels like it just undercuts the tone of what I'd been seeing up until then. It betrays the tone of the sketch, of the whole thing so far, and it kind of like sells it out for a joke that is not there, for a laugh that's not there. She's pushing at the end for that laugh that she doesn't get, and it kind of lands the sketch on a wrong note for me both times.
Okay, that's really interesting, and I actually agree with that. I think that makes sense a lot. So that's a really good point. I have another point about where maybe I could push back a little bit and get you come closer to me on this, but I want to get Rebecca in. So let me bring Rebecca in to get her thoughts. Are you more with Dave on this or Haynes and I?
Definitely with Haynes and you. Like, this is my favorite sketch of the episode for sure, and I thought it was gonna be swayed by Dave, like your opinion here, to be like, okay, maybe I'm like thinking it in my head as like, and I still think it's funny. Like, and I never saw The Watcher, don't know what it is like at all. I like know nothing about it, and I interpreted this as like someone was watching the house, wrote a note to like be creepy, and then I thought it was just like so funny. It felt like an Inside Amy Schumer sketch. Like it felt like this was like the role for her in this episode, so it kind of aligned nicely with like the pop culture reference of The Watcher, which I didn't think I needed to. Like, I might be misinterpreting this whole sketch being like this was someone on the outside because you were thinking she was writing that on her own, but like I thought this was hysterical. I thought every one of I think sometimes with SNL it's like if there's a main character that they're focusing like the jokes on, they sometimes try to pull like a quick joke from one of the like more background characters in this. So like either of the kids or like the husband. And I was happy that they didn't. I didn't know if they were trying to do that when they're like, oh, the kids are TikToking, practicing their TikTok dances, which wasn't a funny joke. So that was good because I sometimes feel like they could veer from like the objective of making like one person funny by trying to throw in little quibs like from other characters. So I thought the narrative was there. It was fully her. I liked that the sketch felt like it was going on for a little too long because it like increased the discomfort here. And like as Haynes said, like we all do weird stuff. Like this would like was very relatable. I was watching it with my parents. We're all like, yeah, we do weird stuff like on our own time that we wouldn't want like anyone to know. And like this is just like this is so relatable to anyone, whether or not you've seen the show.
Yes, I agree. Well, let me just say that something else that I've been really thinking about as for why the structure of the sketch to me works so well. And I'll address this to Dave as the consenting opinion here, where a lot of times SNL, especially in the time that they produce, like the time of the sketch, which is usually somewhere where it's like 3 to 5 minutes, somewhere there, they times they'll have like a really good idea for a sketch, and then they'll insert like a B plot into the sketch that conflates with the original idea. And I'm always fascinated when I watch it, and I think like the paths cross in a way that doesn't work. And I'm like, wow, if they just would have stuck with either this path or this path, I feel like they have a really good sketch here. But because they're trying to sort of fill it out and fill up, like I always this happens so much, especially in this era of the show. But in this sketch, I actually felt like they had a really interesting B plot that complemented the A plot, because the A plot to me is the idea that this looker is seeing Amy do things that she wouldn't want anyone else to see, and they're so much more graphic than the rest of the family, and you're getting to see the flashes to them, and that in itself is funny. But the B plot is the fact that the family is finding out about it, and that Amy is denying that she's doing any of these things to the family. So you get these like little scenes in between it of her being like, well, like all of that stuff that they're saying about you is true, but why isn't this stuff about me true? And I think that in itself is like the subplot of funny there. And I think they both really complement each other in the sketch. So to me, it's like, Dave, when I'm watching it, I'm seeing something rare that I don't always see on SNL.
I would agree. I think that I just think that they got muddled. I think that the lines got crossed and muddled when they intersected each other. But you take something like that compared to the Look What I Can Do sketch, which had A plot, B plot, and C plot. and they played that rhythm
That plot.
really well. I love that sketch because they incrementally heightened each of those subplots as they went back to them, and I kept like loving each time they went back to any one of them. I never knew which one they were going to go to next, and then they finish it off with Longfellow jumping into Look What I Can Do Too, which was great. It was a great heighten for all of it, and all culminated really well. And for me, that was a good blending of A plot, B plot, and a C plot. Whereas I felt like in The Watcher or The Looker or whatever it was called, the two plots connected, and they kind of watered each other down.
Okay. That's this is very funny because I did not particularly enjoy that sketch, but maybe we could talk about it a little bit later and find out why you did like it so much a little bit more, Dave. But Haynes, anything else? Because this was the sketch that you really wanted to talk about. Anything else on The Looker before we move on?
Not really. I mean, we made a lot of good points. And actually, I would say the most intriguing point that I heard during this little chat, Dave, I'm glad you said this because it gives me something to think about. About how Daryl Hammond was, so good as an impressionist. And then, as this other type of character, he can be a little bit wooden. That is not something that I had thought a lot about, but it really strikes me. And I've been like thinking about it the whole time that we've been talking about this. Yeah, it just caught me. I just thought that's a pretty solid observation. And I wonder if it makes the impressions seem even more elevated than maybe if you're talking about a person who's a better general character actor, and then they also have impressions. Maybe since the disparity is not as large, maybe it doesn't make the impressions look as impressive. Maybe that's part of the reason we see J.A.J. and Daryl Hammond as such great impressionists, is because it's just so different from those kind of straight man roles. So I just thought that was an interesting point.
You look at people like Bill Hader or Dana Carvey, who are also impression machines, but also can fully embody a normal person in a sketch.
Yeah.
Even though Bill does a little more cue card reading than I would prefer in a sketch. Sometimes he gets a little wooden if he's not familiar with the sketch.
I just thought it was an interesting point. Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting point and something that I was thinking about. Yeah.
Okay, Dave, let me head over to you for the sketch that you want to talk about.
Yes, I want to talk about Tammy the Trucker, Cecily's follow-up to Goober the Clown, which I also thoroughly enjoyed. I think I love the looseness of it in a way that I don't love the looseness of Dr. We Notice. I love this looseness so much because she is so much more impassioned and focused, where Kate McKinnon is not focused in the Dr. We Notice. Cecily has a point of view. She has a great command of the looseness of her prop work. The timing of it all, the timing of her honks or her beeps or her props it's just so funny that she doesn't care about the trope that she has to put on in order to get this on the air. That's what I love about it. It's like this kind of like meta thing about Update of like, I have this huge platform. I have to say something about this because I have this platform to do this and it's the time to do it. And so why would I waste this moment? But I also have to disguise this as a comedy sketch somehow. So she plays with that responsibility to make it a comedy sketch, holding it very loosely as like a shield. Every time you would think that she is getting way too preachy, she brings it back with a little bit of the comedy sketch. And I love it. I think this for me cements her as an all-time Hall of Famer and a national treasure. And I'm going to be very, very sad when she eventually leaves the show, because I think she's just a force of nature in a way already in her 2 episodes back, in a way that she had not been getting to have that spotlight with Kate and Adie and Pete taking up a lot of the attention. Cecily was doing solid work for the last decade, but also not really getting to be having the spotlight as much as she's had these last 2 episodes, which I'm really enjoying because she's by far my favorite cast member.
Yeah, it's a great point, Dave, that it's not just about, like, when you're watching something like this, it's not just about, what she's trying to say and the message she's trying to get across, obviously at an important time right before the midterms, but there is a secondary commentary here, which is like, of course I'm on SNL, so now I have to, I can't just go up and talk about like a serious issue. I have to like disguise it. And I think that
For all
that's
you comedy nerds that are going to complain.
right. And I think that's interesting given the fact that we have had a few of these commentaries, not just from Cecily, but from other people over the last few years. So it's like, it's something that, in a way, though the commentary is extremely relevant to now in terms of the abortion discussion, I think that the commentary on, disguising it with the Tammy the trucker stuff is actually more meta in terms of, you sort of have to like have an idea of like, okay, like, what does SNL tend to do when they do these characters, and how often does SNL have somebody roll up on the update desk and talk about something serious? I mean, I go back and I think about in 46, we also had Bo and Yang talking about crimes and hate against Asians. So like, this is something that's definitely happened over the last few years, and I think it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of Tina Fey shouting at that cake too during Charlottesville. That was also a big one too, but not as solid, I think, as Cecily's, Goober, and Tammy.
Mm-hmm. Rebecca, would love to bring you in with your thoughts on what you saw.
Yeah, so before I talk about the specific sketch in itself, I mean, these bits on Weekend Update, I think, are some of the reason that I love SNL. Like, they're letting people in the cast and also people that are viewing that have these same emotions and feelings and ties, like, get a chance to express themselves. And I think it's such a strong message. And I mean, I didn't mention this earlier, and I should have, with Amy Schumer being even asked to host. I know she has her like Inside Amy Schumer's coming back, but SNL knew what they were doing by having Amy Schumer on the week before the midterms. Like that, and I don't know this to be true, but that seems very, very deliberate. They know she's going to go in her monologue and talk about like causes that are near to heart and different political things. And that's just who Amy Schumer is. You watch her stand up, her monologues all 3 times have been bits of her stand up that, like, whether I've seen them before or not, like, they end up either making it out after. So I love that SNL gives people a platform to share their beliefs, their thoughts, and especially I know it's been done in the past, but a lot more in recent times when the world is a lot more contentious, like giving the cast members a chance to like go on Weekend Update and talk about things that are near to them. So I was so happy that Cecily was back in time to like discuss this, especially when like, yeah, obviously abortion is a super hot topic going into this midterms. And I mean, I was so happy when I saw her on here because I was like, okay, this is something that needs to talk about. We watched the rest of Weekend Update. It hasn't really been mentioned yet on the show. And obviously there are a ton of female writers on the staff and people that do support females on the show. So I think going into this, I just want to put that out there that that's why I love SNL, and it's awesome that they have the chance. That being said, I wasn't obsessed with this specific portrayal of Cecily's like opinions. I actually completely disagree with you, Dave. That I thought Dr. We Notice was super focused, and it was COVID. Like, we're all going through this together. Life is hard. We're all going through this together. And I thought Cecily as the clown on Weekend Update was also the same, very focused and very emotional, which was a side we haven't seen of too many cast members on the show. And it really gave Cecily a chance to talk about her lived experiences through the means of a clown. So your points were right that it's when they dress up as these characters, it's their way to like, oh, they're putting a character on it, just like for the fact that it is a comedy show and some people are going to give like feedback. But I didn't like that they had Tammy the trucker talking about gas prices and not abortion, because those are 2 huge issues right now in the world. And I think it was super muddled because yes, the gas prices are extraordinarily high and it is crazy. And that could have been a sketch in it on its own, like talking about the gas prices here. But I thought going back and forth kind of took a little bit of meaning back from this sketch and it kind of made it, in my opinion, like it kind of made it seem like, okay, Cecily, don't only talk about abortions, only you have to talk about gas prices too. And the message was confusing. I had to watch it twice to like really like get it and take it in. And I mean, Cecily's always so well worded, especially in a topic that we know is so close to her. And that's why this was successful in general, but I wasn't obsessed with the way that it had to be. And I liked that Colin was calling her Cecily and actually talking to her and not the character, which made it also more personal and that side of things. But you go from a super emotional segment on Weekend Update to this, it kind of didn't feel as meaningful to me. But again, glad it was there. Her message was strong, but I didn't love the way it was gone.
Okay. Haynes, can I get your opinion on what you saw this week from Cecily on Update?
Oh, you're going to get it. Here it comes. So first of all, it's just great having Cecily back. I mean, this wasn't her first week back, but she was all over this episode, and she's just such a joy. One thing that I do disagree with Dave on is that Cecily was cemented as one of the all-time greats before this bit, I think, for sure. And maybe, I mean, she has been one of the all-time greats in many ways, but I take your point that and like maybe it was the goober moment that just put her on that next level, because it just adds another layer. Like, she's always been such a great performer. I love how extreme her characters are. I mean, she just pumps so much into them. I've always said that, and you just feel that. I mean, she's never going through the motions, like she puts everything into her characters. But yeah, the when she did Goober the first time, I mean, that takes things to kind of a different place. So now we've just got so many layers with this person. But she's just so amazing. I did like this. I liked it a lot. I guess it could have been, yeah. I mean, I think the goober was a little bit more clear and direct. Maybe they were going for a little bit more subtlety here as far as, and maybe I would need to rewatch it again, I don't know how much I'll be able to back this opinion up in a few days, but it sounded like, the occasional times that they were mentioning gas prices or being a trucker, those are almost kind of metaphors for being a woman or the challenges that women are facing, in this political climate or something. Even though we were talking about that stuff as well, I mean, it's tough for truckers out here right now. Wink, wink. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I thought it was pretty. I enjoyed it a lot. And I thought it was great.
I think you're right that that the metaphor was kind of intended in there, but like, instead of bringing up and kind of minimizing them, like, I think it was minimizing both issues at hand, the gas prices and that. If it was Tammy the trucker talking about bicyclists on the road, not abortions, that would have made the point more clear, because then it was, like, it is a huge issue, gas prices right now, but then we minimize that. But then, like, I don't know, it kind of like muddled the idea too much, and having two like really big issues at hand here, and one of them being diminished, like, also then in the same way took away from like the other issue at hand that she was trying to discuss.
Well,
but yeah,
I think her point of the gas prices is that, like, she's worried that like half of America is going to vote because the gas prices are high and the economy is rough, and that's what they're going to vote on, when really they need to be voting on this abortion thing. And so she wants to acknowledge, yes, the gas prices are high, yes, the economy is bad, but that is not going to get fixed because Republicans are in charge. In fact, it's probably get a little worse when Republicans are in charge. But voting for those two issues is not what we should be focused on. And I think that was her main point of bringing up those.
I mean, she
did
say
in
that
order
clearly,
to talk about gas prices, she becomes a trucker. And so that's where the character comes from, is because who would talk about gas prices and how bad they are, and how we need to like not worry so much about gas prices right now.
Yeah, and again, this bit was a 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. And I thought Cooper the Clown was a 10 out of 10. So there was just, I've seen greater potential here, So I'm not saying this wasn't great, and like and it needed to happen, but like, I was so excited for it, and I don't
want to mansplain abortion sketch to a woman, so I'm gonna hop off this train right away.
I will just say, I'm glad. I'm so glad that we have Cecily, just like willing to do these things. She is just such an awesome champion. And here's the thing. Yeah, that people, there would be issues with it if it wasn't funny the whole way through, and I would have an issue with it too. I'm okay with a message, but on a comedy show, you better keep me laughing the whole time. And she did. And so, I think it's great. Love it.
Yeah. Honk honk and a jar of Gatorade that maybe is urine is mwah. Chef's kiss.
Yeah. I agree. I think the panel said everything that needs to be said. So I am happy that this happened, and happy to have Cecily back, who, by the way, had really just a fantastic night, including 3 voiceovers. She was in 8 segments in this episode, which is the first 8 that we've had since season 45, I believe. Yes, since season 45, episode 18, that would be Keenan and one of the at-home shows. And if you take out the at-home show, it would be Cecily, who also did in season 45. So, really just had a strong showing here, and also passed Fred Armisen for 3rd place all time in sketch appearances. So that's a big thing for her, only behind Phil Hartman and Kenan Thompson at this point. So, and if she stays on it a little bit more, she will eventually pass Phil. So incredible for Cecily.
That's insane. It's insane.
Yeah. It's really crazy. Okay. Rebecca, I'm going to head to you for the sketch that you want to talk about.
Okay, the sketch that I want to talk about is the Tailgate sketch. And as a New Yorker, as a Jets fan, and then also, I watched this Sunday after the Jets-Bills game, which made it 10 times funnier. So I suggest that if you haven't gone back and rewatched it, just for some context for people that might not be football fans, and the sketch was still funny for them, it's that it was a really big upset and the Jets beat the Bills in the last minute, which
Crazy.
It was so crazy. And the fact that I watched this sketch, literally I turned off the game and then I just turned on SNL, and it made the sketch so much funnier. So I do suggest going back and rewatching it. But I thought this was hysterical. It was people tailgating. The jokes were so easy. They were right there. You're going to have someone who's pregnant walking by and a whole bunch of people who are drunk and tailgating, and drunk on White Claws, mind you. So it's not even that they were drunk. It was just that they were so angry and passionate about the Jets, and they hate all the Bills mafia that have been walking by at the stadium. And then they're calling, literally verbally, oh, you're fat, you're huge, blah, blah. And then Heidi walks by as a pregnant woman, a pregnant Bills fan. I always laugh at the stupid humor, and I thought this whole sketch was it was easy. It was right there. I could have predicted what was next, but it was still funny every single time. And I relate to it. You go to a Jets game, and the team, in most recent history, has just been known to be pretty bad. And it's the fact that it's a bad team is still in New York. So the fans are still going to be angry New Yorkers yelling. And I think it was more of a commentary on New Yorkers than it was the Jets, because I think it was just New Yorkers yelling at things. And I don't know, it laughs the entire time, sent it to people after. It was one of those that just hit for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I didn't think that this sketch was amazing, but I think this sketch did something that I haven't seen them do in a long time, which was probably dive into a little bit of dangerous territory where they start going after somebody in a wheelchair or a pregnant lady. That's something that I don't know if it's unfortunate, but unfortunately I haven't seen SNL been willing to take it that far in a while. And Haynes, I think you sort of feel the same way as me. It's fun every now and then to have some danger in a sketch.
Oh yeah, you know it. And one of the things that I liked, the thing I liked most about this sketch is I get a really hard laugh when we have people just being absolutely brutal with their jokes and making fun of other people. I like insult humor and I like roasts. Because it's so out of my character and out of the character of, generally the people that I like to surround myself with. I just get such a hard laugh of someone willing to be so mean, oh my goodness, certainly, this is not something a way we would actually treat another human being. But it happens sometimes. I got a real hard laugh, after she refused to drink because she's pregnant. And then Amy said something like, "Just drink it, slut," or something like that.
I didn't know you could say slut on TV until this moment.
I'll play the line.
Have a drink, slut.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So just like speaking to a pregnant woman that way, and also pretty funny just in the way that like she tells them she's pregnant, and that's the joke that comes out of it. Amy Schumer's character is immediately like, well, that means you must have had sex, and I'll convert that to you being, too promiscuous for my judgment or something. It's the whole thing's very funny, and I got a real hard laugh. I'm sure everyone did when the empty wheelchair rolled back across. That was very funny. So listen, I thought it was a little bit of a shallow well that we were dipping from. I don't know that I'll remember the sketch much in the future. But I got a couple laughs out of there. Those were the laughs I got. And honestly, if you're a Jets fan, are you going like, SNL, can you do some more Jets sketches, please? Because like Rebecca said, like they're kind of perennially bad, and then they do this sketch and then turn around and beat the best team in the country. I mean, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, I would say that for me, I think, like I said, I don't think the sketch was amazing, but I think that the focus for a lot of the commentary on this sketch is on the yelling towards the people walking by, and for good reason, right? Like to me, I think I said on Saturday, I think my favorite one was the yelling at nobody, and then all of a sudden it's like the kids walk across the screen, and that delay in like holding things and that dead air, I guess, almost in the sketch for me really worked. But I do think that the interesting part that makes this sketch a little bit better for me is the lack of self-awareness of when there's nobody there, and then it's a complete like dichotomy between the yelling and then like something where you have Andrew being like,
Where do kids even learn this?
Like they're just like, what, like how does this even happen? And like that to me is fun, and especially in somebody like Andrew, who I think can who we've described before is like the baby face assassin who could just like come in and it looks so innocent and then just let out this roar in this character that we never expect. So I think for me, he was definitely the right cast in that sense for this sketch. Dave, how did you feel about what you saw from the Jet sketch?
I'm going to be a real heel in this episode. I feel like for me, this was the worst sketch of the year. I did
worst
not
sketch of the
enjoy
year.
This sketch at all.
Okay,
Worst sketch
tell
of
us
the
why.
year for me. I felt it was way too predictable. I thought it was way too mean-spirited. I felt it was the wrong casting all across the board. I think if you want to have a sketch where people seem nice and then go off the rails, you don't cast an Amy Schumer in that or a Cecily Strong, because they're already such strong personalities that the back and forth is not as dynamic as that sketch would call for. And I also think that they were rushing the nice parts to get to the yelling. And if you're doing a straight beat, absurd beat, back and forth sketch, you have to make me forget that the yelling is going to come out of nowhere soon and lull me into this false sense of like, oh yeah, we're just here on a picnic. We're here on a picnic, a tailgate. We're here on a tailgate. We're friends. These are charming, normal people. And then surprise me when they go ballistic on kids or a guy in a wheelchair and a pregnant lady, and have that be more of like, oh yeah, that's what the sketch is. But they were racing through those normalized beats in order to get to the yelling or to ramp up their energy for the yelling. And I saw it coming every single time. Making surprise, New Yorkers yell at people. That's for me, that New York sports fans are rude to people that are not on their team. What? That's a hot take. I didn't see anything special or new or fun or I don't say competent. It was a competent sketch. It just was not well executed, I think.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, I didn't say it was like smart humor. It was like blatantly stupid. Like, I like that. I mean, I know we're seeing a lot of back and forth in the comments too. So, Dave, you're not alone out there. I think you're just with 3 people here that like really laughed at it. But I do think if Sarah Sherman was in this, like, it would have just been that much funnier with all the yelling and screaming.
Yes, because Sarah Sherman does understand, but playing small and then going big for that huge jump. And Cecily is here all the time, and she's just going here to get a little angrier. Amy Schumer's always here. You know what I mean? Andrew has that range for sure. He can go from quiet to big. So I feel like he was fine. But what a waste of Mikey Day in that sketch.
Yeah, I believe he did write this, so I think he wrote himself into that role, which is an interesting perspective. Like I said, I'm not gonna fight for the sketch because I don't love it that much. I think it was basic and good. There wasn't a lot of nuance, but for me, there were worse sketches in this episode, let alone worst sketch of the year. So that is a hot take, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah, I respect it. So. Okay, let's talk about the sketch that I want to talk about. And I teased it a little bit before.
Big penis therapy. It's therapy.
Yes, let's talk about it. Because this, to me, I love doing second watches of SNL. You can really see my process as I go through things. And obviously, I'm like, okay, a lot of penis humor here. Like, what's that about? But when you rewatch this sketch, I just really love that it was layered on top of this thing where it's like these women just want this guy to go to therapy, and the only way that they can get him to go is to call it big penis therapy. And they expand on it by saying that everything that he's doing, like going to church, they want him to go there. Well, they have to call it long dong church. You know, it's like everything that this man does has to be around the fact, and it's so great. And to me, this was really well written and really smart. I think it's, I don't know why I haven't seen more hype for it, because I think it's going to get potentially lost in the shuffle. But as far as like a live sketch is concerned this season, this has to be one of the better live sketches from this season through 5 episodes. I always say, like, I support and love sketches with like less cast members in them. So you had like everybody had a part to play in this. And I think that the only caveat I would maybe take away is like, I didn't love the card game competitiveness, where I felt like that maybe took away a touch for me from the concept of like a really smart concept of basically saying like the only way that this guy could ever get vulnerable and do something good for himself and for his life is to hide it behind this masculine, big penis energy, BDE. So I think that unfortunately that would be the one part that I probably would change about this. But to me, I think that this was like as good as I've seen in terms of live sketches this season. And it was like a fresh idea and really, I think some of the lines here were really smart, but I'll get into them as we sort of go through the panel. But Haynes, I'll start with you on this one. How do you feel about big penis therapy?
Absolutely loved this sketch. Just really, really enjoyed it. The only thing that I will say is, you're talking about how good the writing was. And we've used the word muddle earlier tonight. There was it was hard for me to know exactly whether Amy's character had just been calling therapy big penis therapy to get him to go, or if this was actually like a marketing ploy. Like there's a company out there that's like, gentlemen, come to big penis therapy. I was a little confused about where the name and the source of that was coming from. Because it sounded like, and Amy being like, oh, like really wanting the ladies to call it big penis therapy. But then he pulled out this badge. Exactly. Then he pulled out this badge that I was like, oh wait, but did she manufacture that herself? Did she like go get that done somewhere? Or so then I was still just like, all right, is it her idea or was it someone else's idea? That's the only thing that that wasn't completely clear to me. But
can I just say though that like, just, I don't want you to lose your thought, but can I just say I took it as it was her idea because I felt like she was really pushing the ladies in terms of like all the other examples that was using. She was like, don't mess this up for me. And it would be like too much. It would take out the reality of the sketch for it to be like, there's an actual therapy place called big penis therapy.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah, probably so. I mean, she's definitely selling it, to her friends, but I didn't know if she was also just like, like just didn't want the cover blown from whoever was the source of this genius idea. But to me, yeah, hilarious sketch. I love that, they keep coming back to, the idea of the big penis. So every time it gets like a different, new funny moniker, like, well, they just kind of know you got a baby leg down there. I don't. So it's funny hearing all these different names for a giant penis. And as far as flipping the table at the end, I didn't feel like it took anything away from it. It's just a way of doubling down on how incredibly insecure this guy is, because usually, this idea of like needing a big penis comes from some sort of insecurity. So to me, it was just just another way of just really just emphasizing like how insecure this person is. I didn't feel like it ruined anything. And I really, actually, one of the things I thought about, I really liked the body posture that Dismukes stayed in after he flipped the table. And then he just kind of like hangs there in this very like broken position. It almost shows you like how fragile this guy is. Like that, like even just losing a game of cards is like, stop making fun of me. Like he's, so it's obviously insecurity that drives all this stuff for the, the idea that he needs to have a big penis, or he wants people to think that he has a big penis. But full of lots of good humor in, the ladies kind of going along with it, but Ego in particular being like kind of skeptical. I definitely got a big laugh out of Dismukes challenging Sarah Sherman when she said that maybe she should tell her man about this, and she's like, he's pretty okay down there, and he says, well, sorry, it's not pretty okay size penis therapy. So this obviously, just a guy that like really needs this. I loved it. It was very, very, very funny to me.
Yeah. And Dave, I mean, I just felt that in a way, you obviously have to evaluate the sketch in isolation because not everybody's watching it like all the way from live to start to finish. But I did feel like throughout the episode, the humor, I think I joked on Saturday about like equal time, but like, the humor has been very like female, like genitalia focused. So for me, like, it was kind of funny to like flip it on its head. It's like, okay, let's make a comment on men here and their perspective on male genitalia and how that affects their views on things. So like, I think in the context of the episode, this was actually extremely refreshing to me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you guys have said, and I don't want everybody to think I did not like this episode. I did. I loved the monologue. I thought the monologue was A+. I thought I
Dave,
love.
You just see things differently. That's all it is.
I'm a guy that sees things differently, right? I love a good J.J. Trump. I loved the Pink's period underwear sketch. I even like Big Dumb Hat. We just didn't hit those tonight. But big penis therapy for me is just like the matzo ball soup sketch, is a great premise that got ruined by the kind of the forced writing and the flat line delivery of obvious cue card reading that kind of takes away from me getting into the sketch when I can just
and we can all agree those were mozzarella balls, right? That was a mozzarella ball she squished. When I look at it up close, like those weren't mozzarella. That was mozzarella. That was mozzarella balls in the soup.
I had a matzo ball soup today for lunch, and you're right. That was not.
I'm glad you were able to have it.
Yeah, thank you.
What this sketch did realize for me is that the cast does not have any alpha males right now. They are alpha male-less. There's no Belushi energy. There's no Phil Hartman energy. There's no Will Ferrell energy. Not even a Rob Riggle energy. I think what you got right now is Che, and he doesn't do sketches. And Che wrote the sketch, and he should have been in the sketch because it would have played a lot harder to have an actual alpha male. Maybe even Shane Gillis could have played this sketch better than Andrew Dismukes, because it would have been somebody who obviously has those kind of issues and rage issues and anger issues. And Andrew does play rage very well, but he's also very much kind of a beta energy in a sketch. And I think this sketch screamed for alpha male energy at that card table.
Okay. Rebecca, how did you feel about the sketch?
I just to bounce off that, I'm just gonna keep going after your hot takes tonight. It's gonna make it seem like I'm just arguing with you, but I thought it wouldn't have been funny if there was an alpha male. I thought the fact that like there are stereotypes of alpha males and Dismuke males, and that you wouldn't look at him necessarily and think he has a really big penis. And I think that is really what was the comedy in this sketch. I mean, I thought he was incredible, but I thought Amy being the host, like, and taking over the role that she was in this sketch was amazing, because I feel like if it was maybe another, like, not as experienced or not a 3-time host or something like that, they would have played like Ego's role, and Ego would have played Amy's role in this sketch. So I think it was awesome to see that, especially this episode, they recognized that they had a host that like multifaceted, super talented that could take the role. And I thought Amy's humor like made it. Like the way that she's giving those eyes that we've all definitely given before, where we're like, come on, like just go along with this. Like let's do this. Like if there's like a little kid and you're like, oh, you need to like make your bed in order to get breakfast. Like that's just the rules. Like, right. And like you're trying to get someone to agree with you. I thought that was she really did a good job portraying like a real life thing that I've definitely experienced, where I'm like looking at someone and being like, come on, just go along with this right now for my sake. And I thought it was just really all around funny. I thought it was a good concept. And I forgot who made the point, but the contrast between like female genitalia humor and male genitalia, like I thought it was a good balance. And this was pretty relatable. And the fact that, yes, there's a whole thing that like men won't go to therapy. And I thought that they did a good job. I also did like the Uno references, because there's been, I mean, for years back and forth of, can you do a +4 and a +4? And like, I know Uno came out on Twitter and said, and like spoke to this. So I think that it was just a pop culture thing that was just like subtly thrown into this. And like, if you got it, you got it. If you didn't, you didn't need to.
Yeah. I felt like the writing was tight enough that I didn't necessarily think that they needed that into the sketch, but I understand. But I definitely learned something tonight from you, Rebecca, that Andrew Dismukes has small dick energy, which I didn't know. So
Yeah.
yeah, did not know this, but good thing he's going to big penis therapy. Okay. Let's go around the panel one more time and ask them for anything else that they just want to make sure that we touch on from the episode. So Haynes, was there anything else in the episode you just want to make sure we touch on?
If we hadn't gotten to that would have been it. But we've hit my favorite parts.
Okay. Dave, I know you said there's a lot of stuff that you liked. Give me, one or two things that you just want to make sure we talk about.
I think Dismukes in the COVID sketch was A+. He had 3 lines and he stole that sketch. And I also think that
wait, can I just play those for the let me just play those for the audience, because I did
course.
pull them as well, and I thought those were
So
really
good.
hysterical.
They
So
were
this
so
is the
good.
COVID pre-tape where they're talking about people actually wanting to get COVID at this point in time, and we have Andrew Dismukes playing Heidi's husband here
But what do they eat?
as she's shoving the door and pushing them away, and then we get one more time later in that sketch
Please don't do this to me.
So yes, those were very funny to me as well. Dave, go ahead.
And then the other one is from Amy's monologue. I thought, is it autism or just a man? Could have been its own sketch in its own right, and perhaps it might have been pitched as a sketch, as a good game show sketch. But I thought her whole monologue was fantastic. But that was the crown jewel joke of that.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought the monologue, because I'm upset that I forgot to mention it earlier on in this episode. I thought her monologue was amazing. I mean, yes, she has long monologues as a stand-up, and I'm sure these jokes are, I know she was just on tour. I didn't see it, but I'm sure these jokes were used and perfected, and I'm glad she chose the ones for SNL that she chose. And the thing with Amy that, I mean, it does get touchy talking about her husband's autism, and she does it in a way that it's never offensive, and it's not her own stuff to discuss. So I think that like that's always tricky. It's like you can make fun of yourself, yes, but making fun of others, that's where it kind of teeters that it could be offensive. And I personally loved it. I mean, there was a Kanye Nazi joke in there that I thought was so brilliantly executed, and I
You
thought
want to play
like
that one for you, Rebecca? I got
Yeah,
that one for
yeah.
you. Here.
Dr. Asperger had like Nazi ties, Kanye.
It was, that one was like, it was so well timed. We also know like that could have been hit or miss depending on like the delivery of that, because it was such like a quick little throw in, and that was like the highlight for me, like me from the monologue for sure.
Can I just also throw one thing? How awesome it was to see Marcello kind of break through tonight with all his sketches, and him just executing everything so well. Very surprising and very fun. I can't wait to see more of him.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
in 6 sketches, so he was really had a dominant night, which was great. I'll just say a couple other funny lines from sketches. We won't dive too deep into all of the sketches from the other ones we didn't get to talk about tonight. But I think that my biggest laugh of the night personally was the juror sketch to me was okay, but some of the
I
lines
loved it.
were really, some of the lines were really funny, especially this one.
Midnight I stay up, I'm Taylor Swift.
And then Keenan gave me by far my funniest laugh of the night.
That is not a song from Midnight. That is a song from fun.
That was like pure brilliant execution.
That was
Rebecca,
my
you like that
favorite
one?
sketch of the night, I think. But like, there wasn't too much to dissect about it. It was
I
just
know,
like funny. And I don't know, it was pretty brilliant. I was honestly shocked that Bowen didn't help write that. Like, it sounded very Bowen-esque in a sketch. And I thought he was like kind of quiet this episode. And that like made it up like his lower screen time, I think, than like previous episodes this season. Like that sketch like did it for me. I loved
Well,
it.
especially this line from Bowen where he goes,
Oh my god, now the murderer is yelling at us.
So good.
When Amy was cut, like literally, they kept talking about the chicken, and I was like, "This is so funny."
Yeah.
I thought the one you were going to play was, I think maybe the very next one where he's like, wow. And now the judge is trying to silence 3 women of color.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the line of
funny
that
too.
sketch.
That was so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. And I'll also say, just for like just our own little inside baseball humor, I would say like, look, JJ being as Trump in this Twitter sketch, like that didn't need to happen. But this line happening on Saturday Night Live, always pretty funny.
Chevy, not very nice on set of Community. Won't be back for a reboot. Can you believe that?
Yeah, anyone talking about Chevy Chase on SNL, I think it's always interesting. So that to me was pretty funny. Let's
That would be a good stat, John. That'd just be a good stat. How many times have they taken swipes at 2 former cast members on the same episode?
Yeah,
They
Mike,
also
get on
hit
that.
Tracy Morgan pretty well too.
All right, Mike Murray, we got to buy the number show. All right, let's do our polls from this week. So every single week we ask you on Monday mornings. We put up some polls on Twitter and on Instagram. You can always participate by finding us at the SNL Network. And this week we wanted to know, out of all the 3-time hosts, so Amy Schumer now joins the 3-timers club, which ones would you want to see back for their 4th time on the show? So I'm going to get the panel's opinion, and then I'll let everybody know what the audience said. So I'll put up the list right here on screen. So
Okay.
I know there's a lot of people here, but Haynes, anyone who you stand out that you would want to see back for their 4th time on the show?
Robin Williams.
Well,
Me too.
That was mine. That was my
Mullen
number one.
Khan too. Jeez,
Low hanging fruit there. Yeah.
All right.
I
Somebody's still with us.
Yeah. So I think the Eddie Murphy thing was just so special. Like, I just don't think like we'll ever have him again. But like John Hamm is someone that he's still doing commercials. Everyone still loves him. Like, it'd be great to have him back. You know?
Okay. Rebecca?
I'm gonna say Seth Rogen. He's kind of in like a new era of Seth Rogen. He's been making a lot of pottery and like he has this whole weed business. And I think he's a different person. So I think his humor and being on the show would pair very differently to the other 3 performances we've seen of him.
And Dave?
Yeah, I was gonna go Madeline Kahn for sure, but I've always had this fantasy in the back of my mind that Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda would host together. I think it'd be a very special show. And if Lily Tomlin's not up for it, then I'm definitely picking Eddie Murphy for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, let me give the results from the audience today. So this is by far our most answered question. I think a lot of people had a lot of fun with it. So we're going to bring up the results. And we said, which 3-timer do you want to see as a host for the 4th time? And number 1 was Adam Driver, coming in at 16%. We then had Marty Short. What?
I'm shocked that is the number 1 result of this. Like,
Yeah.
I looked and I was like, definitely not him. But that's interesting.
No, people really loved his.
Hathaway.
Yeah, people really loved his appearances on SNL. So Adam Driver, number 1. Marty Short comes in at number 2 at 11%. Anne Hathaway, number 3, 9%. JLD, Julia Louis-Dreyfus at 7%. A couple of former cast members on here. And then also Eddie Murphy, 6%. So 3 former cast members, Marty Short, JLD, and Eddie Murphy, comes in at 6% for 5. So that was pretty great today. Okay, then we wanted to know. So this was interesting. I was looking at the structure of the episode when I was taking my notes last night, and I said, I'm like, okay, there was a lot of stuff after Weekend Update this week. That's kind of unusual. So I went back. I was trying to look. I was like, when was the last time we had this? And it wasn't since season 45. So again, 3 seasons ago that we had in the JJ Watt episode. And then before that, the Scarlett Johansson episode, where we had 5 sketches, not including any musical performances, 5 sketches after Weekend Update. So I was curious, how our audience felt about that. Do they like seeing a lot of stuff after Update, or is it better to front load the episode? So Haynes, do you have an opinion on this?
I haven't tried to formulate an opinion, but it was something that I absolutely noticed, not in the moment when I was watching it, but on the rewatch, because I remembered all these sketches from the first time I had seen it. And as I'm rewatching, I'm going, wait, all these sketches were after Weekend Update? It did feel like there was just a lot more after Weekend Update than normal. I'm not sure my opinion on it. It just felt weird. Okay. It just felt different to me. Yeah, I think I'm just used to the other, the front loaded episodes.
Dave, do you have an opinion? Backloading the episode or front loading the episode?
Oh, I don't have an opinion on that. I'm happy. No matter, I like live sketches more than I like tape sketches, because I think there's more of a daredevil act to them, so I really enjoy them more. So I think shorter sketches means more sketches on air, means more cast members on air, more diversity of opinions, and more different kinds of takes and premises. And I'd rather see more sketches, even if they're not all amazing. I'd rather see more.
Okay, Rebecca, what about you?
I like being surprised and some change every once in a while, because I watch it a lot of the time. Like, I record it just due to timing, and I like when I'm like, wait, it seems like we're gonna do the goodbyes, but there's 7 minutes left. Like, there's gonna be another sketch, and it's just exciting for me. I think obviously with more sketches comes more flops, but more opportunities for better sketches. So no real opinion, but it's kind of fun when they switch things up a little bit.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm a traditionalist when it comes to this stuff. Like, if your sketches are silly, then I have no problem backloading the episode. But I think if they're not extremely silly and dumb, then I'd rather have it be more front loaded. So that to me is a little bit more of a nuanced opinion about it, because after Update, I'm expecting pure silliness. So that's what I would prefer. But we did ask the audience. We said, did you enjoy having more sketches after Update or less? 77% of the audience said they enjoyed having more sketches after Update. 23% of the audience said they definitely prefer less sketches. So pretty strong majority there said they preferred having more sketches after Update.
Can I just finish on this comment? The Big Dumb Hats did not feel like a 10-to-1 sketch to me. I couldn't believe that was at the very end. Honestly, that could have been the second or third sketch of the show, and I think it would have fit just fine right there. It was pretty normalized. It wasn't too weird. It didn't really push any boundaries or anything. It doesn't feel 10-to-1-y to me. So I was kind of surprised that that's how we ended.
Okay. Well, now we're going to head to our MVP results for the week. So every week we ask you for your MVP. It could be the host, could be a cameo, could be a musical guest, could be a cast member, but we want to know who your MVP was. And I'm going to go around the panel and ask them who they think the top 3 vote getters were this particular week. Haynes, who do you think was the top 3?
Cecily, Dismukes, Schumer.
Okay. Dave?
Cecily, Heidi, Dismukes.
And Rebecca?
Heidi, Amy, and Dismukes.
Heidi, Amy, and Dismukes. All right, I'm going to bring up those results on screen. And Cecily Strong wins the MVP voting with 33% of the vote for week number 5. And then Amy Schumer, our host, comes in second with 26% of the vote. Heidi Gardner in third place, 19% of the vote. So Heidi continues to be this ultimate utility player, 6 sketches. I mean, she's really having a very, if you like Heidi as being the utility player in all these sketches, she's having a very strong season for that. So 19% of the vote. And then a little bit of drop off, Dismukes at 5%. And then as Dave brought up earlier, Marcelo having, just an incredible episode, comes in at 4% of the vote here for week number 5. So that is our top 5: Cecily, Amy, Heidi, Andrew, and Marcelo. Okay. Fun episode to talk about with the Amy Schumer coming back for the 3rd time. We have another 3rd-time host coming in, and I'll just say this was a big surprise when this popped up on screen, where we have host Dave Chappelle coming in post midterm. So he comes back for his post election spot with musical guest Black Star. And I certainly, rightfully so, understand there's a lot of people who have a lot of trepidation about watching the episode, supporting the episode, due to some of the comments he has made in, I believe it was his Netflix special about a year ago that had come out, where he had made disparaging comments about transgenders and the transgender community, and didn't necessarily take a step back and evaluate and apologize or get into that in a way, sort of double down on a lot of those things. And, it creates a little bit of a tough situation for, commentators, for viewers, for him being booked. But obviously SNL definitely felt like this was the right choice for this particular week. And we're going to have, a lot more discussion about Dave Chappelle, his episode, him being booked for the show. So I don't want to, necessarily get into like the full thing now, but I'd like to just get initial thoughts from the panel on the booking of Dave Chappelle and our expectations for this coming week. Haynes, I know, at least in the past, you've told me you are a big fan of Dave Chappelle and from what you've seen on Saturday Night Live. So how are you feeling about him being booked?
Well, it was incredibly surprising. I didn't see it coming. I mean, these are just the midterms, like usually he's presidential material. So it was shocking. Also, something that I noted, I mean, how often do hosts get to choose their own musical guest? Because that's what this reeks of. I mean,
right.
Like it feels like Dave Chappelle was like, and I'm bringing Black Star with me. So I'm really, I think I just love Mos Def and Talib Kweli. So that'll be very cool. I'll say this. There are a ton. Dave Chappelle has made a lot of statements in the last few years that I do not agree with. I'll also say I don't think that any person on earth has ever made me laugh harder than Dave Chappelle. And so my predictions for the episode are, I do think we'll get a shorter monologue than the last couple. I think his last monologue, and you can correct me on this, I'm sure it might have been the longest monologue in SNL history.
It was
that? Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. So my predictions are he will talk about Kanye in his monologue. He will not discuss trans issues, and he'll only be in 3 or 4 sketches, but one will include a Please Don't Destroy where they're back in the office at 30 Rock and he pops in for a little chat.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those are some good predictions. Dave, what are your thoughts on our expectations for Dave Chappelle coming in next week?
I wasn't surprised when I saw it because it makes sense that he'd do the next one after he did the one after the election. He brought Tribe Called Quest with him last time, so that didn't surprise me either about Black
I think the
Star.
first time, yeah.
He has made me laugh very hard in the past. I don't like his I don't like how he gets focused on the trans issue and doesn't let go of it. It feels like when Lenny Bruce was getting arrested and he kind of like lost his funny because he was just so angry and defensive about it. And that's what it feels like when he's talking about it. It stops becoming funny and more becoming defensive. And that's not a good place to be as a stand-up, is being defensive. Where he's on his heels a little bit about it. And I don't agree with him about anything, but every other time he makes jokes about anything else, it's A+. And in this area, I don't agree with him. And of course, you call him like the George Carlin of our time, and there's lots of things that people didn't agree with George Carlin with at the time. It couldn't be right. I don't think that's going to happen with Dave Chappelle in this instance. I think he's very transgressive in this area, and it makes me sad because I do love him as a comic and all his other hot takes, but this is a place I don't want to hear from him. As a result of that, I had a hard time even getting to his specials, his last special, even though I looked forward to every single one of them coming up. But the same thing would happen with me with Norm Macdonald too, where Norm would have these crazy misogynistic takes on things, and I'd be like, oh man, I want to look up to you. I want to think that you're a better human than I am in almost every regard. In this place, I get ahead of Chappelle here, and it's not a place where I want to be admiring him in that space. But I am looking forward to the sketches. I thought the last episode he did was fantastic. So many wonderful, memorable, all-time moments from that episode. And the monologue was fantastic. The him making fun of Pete Davidson's lips was fantastic. So many funny sketches from that episode. I'm really looking forward to that. I hope he is a little bit more into this live sketches than he was last time he was there, because it seemed like he just kind of showed up and read some cue cards. We're hoping he has a little bit more of a input into the actual construct of the show, which is what I would hope every host would want to do. So I'll, I, I'm looking forward to the episode. I don't have high hopes. How about that?
Okay, that's fair. Rebecca, what are your thoughts?
So I just want to give some background for people that are listening or watching that might not know what we're referring to in all this controversy here. So 2021 Dave Chappelle's stand-up special, he made some transphobic jokes within it, and then he doubled down on them, where he declared himself a TERF, which stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. And for people that also don't know, it's transgender encompasses all people whose gender's identity is different than the sex they were assigned at birth. So non-binary is a sector of transgender. So if you are identify as non-binary, then you are transgender as well. That being said, in awesome news, this season has Molly, who is the first non-binary cast member. And there are really famous, well-known non-binary writers on the show, like Celeste Yim. And I think the timing could not be more poor that Dave Chappelle is hosting here. I mean, just to put this into perspective in modern day stuff, I know, Haynes, you said he's going to make Kanye jokes. If in a year from now Kanye is hosting, there are Jewish cast members. There's like Sarah, there's Chloe, and they wouldn't have Kanye host. At least I would hope they wouldn't, for that purpose, that they are the cast members and writers that are going to feel uncomfortable and are the target of the jokes and the hate towards the group. The fact that Dave Chappelle not only made transphobic jokes, which is unacceptable, and then he doubled down on it so many times now that it feels so inappropriate that SNL would take this. Yes, and my expectations for the episode, he's going to be funny. He's always funny. Like, yes, it's after the midterms, and bearing whatever the results, his content is going to reflect that, and it's going to be great, but it feels like such a cheap shot for SNL to want to book him for this. And I understand some people sitting out for that. So being said, like, this is so exclusionary for the non-binary cast members and writers on the set. So that is the controversy, just for some background for people here.
Thank you. Yeah.
That being said, I mean, Dave Chappelle, it's his third time. His first and second appearances were amazing. I mean, that super long monologue not only it kind of reflects what I was talking about earlier, where this is a platform that, like, you can talk about issues dear to you in a funny way, and he does that so well. So I have really high expectations for his monologue, and while I don't think he's going to talk about his transphobic jokes, I mean, this would be the stage for him too, but considering I think he doubled downs on it a lot, like, that I don't really expect that. I mean, he's gonna be funny. I do agree with Dave. I hope for some more live sketches there, because or more effort towards the live sketches, because Dave Chappelle just knows whatever lines he's gonna read is gonna be funny. So, like, whatever the cue card says, even if he's reading right off them, if he's like me looking at my computer screen reading off them, his delivery is so good that it will be funny. So looking forward to especially his monologue after the last one. I mean, high expectations for that. And, like, he's good. He's funny. And I think, like, the episode will hopefully be funny. Obviously, my feelings aside, and a lot of other people's feelings, like, his humor is good. So, I mean, like, it'll definitely be interesting to see how it plays out. And the sketches in which, like, they write for him will definitely be, like, what I'm looking out for most.
Yeah, thank you for all of that, Rebecca. Really appreciate you giving all the background for that. So it hopefully informs a lot of the listeners who weren't exactly sure what happened. I will just say, look, I'm really extremely proud of our team here at the Saturday Night Network, both internally and all of the podcasters, the diversity of opinions, backgrounds, and, just the thoughtfulness that they put into every single time they're on a podcast. I couldn't enjoy my conversations more with them. And I think, like, my expectations for the week is, we're going to have the difficult conversations about the situation and what it means to book Dave Chappelle. Should SNL be booking a host like Dave Chappelle? And then we're also going to talk about the episode, and we're going to break this down like we would any other week, because that is what we're here to do. So if you're one of the listeners who says, I just don't want to hear about all of the other things and I just want to focus on Saturday Night Live, I get it, but we're going to address the issues as well. And that I feel like a responsibility to do that through our coverage. It's not going to be every single episode. I know we produce a lot of content. It's not going to be every single episode, but I think at least I will say on the roundtable next week, I'm sure for part of the Hot Take Show, we'll talk about what, how this does affect the particular episode and then the bookings and of course any other news that goes on, because I certainly feel a responsibility to do so because it's part of it. And I think that I don't want to make comparisons between, controversial hosts and issues, but I think if you go back to our coverage of Elon Musk's episode for season 46, which was in our first season, I think we did a really good job talking about that and just parsing through exactly what it meant and why maybe it was a horrible idea to book Elon Musk and maybe why some other people really appreciated that. And that's what's great about this show is that there's not always a right opinion here. So I think that ultimately that's how I feel.
They have
thanks for saying that, Jon.
They have a long history of booking people that should have no business hosting Saturday Night Live, and we're still standing, and the show is still standing.
Yeah, for sure. And we got if you want to check out of this week, I don't think anybody would blame you if this episode's not for you. We got 3 more episodes coming up in December that I hope will be fantastic. So I am looking forward at least to just seeing like I have no idea what's going to happen on Saturday. The mystery of it all is at least intriguing to me. So that will be it for tonight. And of course, we'll come back to this later on in the week. Haynes, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Please tell the listeners where they can reach out to you or anything you would like to plug.
Oh, you can't find me anywhere. Don't go looking. No reason to find me. Just little old Haynes living his life.
With his mustache.
Yeah, with my mustache and great conversation today. To touch on the last 30 seconds, who knew, when we're starting a show talking about SNL that we'd be, having serious conversations and stuff, but it's part of the gig. It was so great being on with you guys, and so thank you everyone for participating in this today. Just love being on with everyone, and looking forward to talking more SNL in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, so great to get to talk about Saturday Night Live with you for the first time in season 48. So happy to have you on. Please tell the listeners where they could reach out to you and see everything you got going on.
You can reach out to me personally at Dave Buckman on Facebook or Twitter. And you can also help save Cold Town Theater from gentrification and corporate big business by donating to Cold Town as we're trying to find a forever home at coldtowntheater.com/support. That's Cold Town with an E at the end of that.
Awesome. Rebecca, thank you for joining us as well. Happy to have you back on East Coast time. So where can the listeners check out everything you got going on?
Just look up at Rebarbecue on all social media. If I know we've had a lot of, as Haynes was saying, harder conversations, which is just due to the nature of SNL constantly adapting to the climate and the times. If anyone wants to continue any conversations with me, hit me up. I'm always happy to talk about it. And thank you, Jon, for having me today.
Of course, it was a pleasure. So thank you to Haynes and to Dave and to Rebecca and everybody in the chat for joining us. You can find us at the SNL Network on all social platforms. Well, we're posting some really fun stuff during the week. And please subscribe to the podcast wherever you can on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify to never miss any of the episodes. Coming up next on your feed on Wednesday night, we'll have our By the Numbers show with Mike Murray and Nicole Rovine talking about this episode with special guest Eric, who is just so excited to talk about numbers. He is just amazing numbers guy too. So I think him and Mike are going to nerd out and Nicole's going to just have some fun with them. So it's going to be a great time on Wednesday. And I'll be back at 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday for the patron feedback show with 2 of our wonderful patrons who will be joining us for the first time on the podcast, Fred and Connor. All right. For everybody on the panel and everybody in the chat tonight, thank you for joining us. We will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.